So my name is Rosie. I'm the events coordinator at Readers, and I get the very easy job of introducing Andy, who will introduce Ada. So I just get all the really kind of nitty-gritty details of the evening. If you have anything that makes noise, sometimes watches, cell phones, speakers, whatever you might have, if you can make sure it's not going to make that noise. We live stream our events to our YouTube, which, good job us, we've never been technologically inclined, so we've learned about YouTube. Because of that, if you guys can be careful, the camera is over by those exit doors. If you're moving around at all, try not to lock the camera so that the people who communicate it tonight still get to see. So the other really nice thing about this evening, when you guys bought your tickets, there was a donation option. Andy and Lila Weinberger founded Readers in 1991, and Lila passed in 2019, very suddenly, and we miss her dearly. And one of the things Andy did in her name was create a scholarship at the Sonoma Valley High School. It's a very Readers Books type scholarship. We don't make them apply. We don't make them write huge essays about exactly why everything is important to them. We just go, hey, Sonoma Valley High School English Department, who's someone who needs this? We'll give it to them. It is a scholarship for $1,000 for whatever they might need. So, sometimes people need books, or they realize, I just want a burrito and I don't have money because I'm in college. This is their burrito money. And you guys have provided for at least one scholarship and a third of another one. So the other message I have to give you guys is how the rest of the evening is going to work. Andy's going to introduce Ada. Ada is going to do her reading. And then we have a time for questions. What's going to happen is there's a microphone there that I'm going to move to the center here. And we have until 7 o'clock. So it'll be about 20 minutes to do questions. So that'll be there. Then after that, she will be personalizing copies of Startlement. So that's the newest one. She has pre-signed everything we have by her, but Startlement's the one she's going to actually write out whatever you guys like. There'll be someone through the line who's going to have Post-it notes, so you guys can spell out exactly how you want it to be spelled. We do only have the space until 8 o'clock, so we have to be pretty careful about how long your personalization is. But other than that, we're just in for a beautiful evening of poetry and love of words, and I'm so excited to see it. So now Andy's going to tell you guys a lot more than I was.
Hi there. I have introduced Ada Limón at least 10 times, maybe 12. And I think mostly to you folks. So you probably know everything there is to know about her. And this is kind of irrelevant. But I'm not going to tell you about the 10 books that she's written, 7 poetry and other things, and not gonna tell you about the rocket that she's signed your poem that's on the way to Europa. And I'm not gonna tell you about how she appeared on Jeopardy and how she won the MacArthur grant and all of that. And how, of course, she's the poet laureate. I'm not gonna talk about that. You know that's, so it's kind of ridiculous. She's, you know, she's one of us, and you all know Ada. So what I thought I'd talk about a little bit is the task of poetry, just a little bit, because particularly at this time, poetry is precious, and the task is monumental. And the real task of poetry, I think, from my point of view, is to bring us together, is to connect, just to show that we're not alone, and to point out all our common humanity, and you know, to care about what's going on in the world, the fate of the world. That's the point of poetry. It's the point of language, really. And needless to say, the people who occupy the White House right now are not lined up like that. They don't care about those kinds of things. But I would like to offer you a message of hope in spite of that. In my view, poets and bookstores such as ours, and people who read and laugh and tell jokes on late night television, and we're on Earth One, and we, no matter what they tell you, we are the true heroes of this moment. You know, we will prevail, I'm sure of it. All we have to do really is stand together and speak with a clear voice. And if we're lucky, it'll be a voice like Ada Limon's. So please welcome.
Thank you, Andy. And thank you, Rosie. And thank you, Jude, and everybody who helped put this together. It is such a gift to be back here, and it's very rare that I've gotten to release a book on the actual date of the release here in Sonoma. So this is the official day that this book is out. And I'm very it's also very strange to be at the community center. Because I just kept having sort of, you know, flashbacks while I was here, which was the many different times I've been on the stage, either as a very poor dancer, or a somewhat okay actor occasionally. And it's just a joy to be here in my hometown. So thank you. I'm going to read a few poems, and then we'll have a couple questions and all that. But I just wanted to say right off the bat that I keep coming back again and again to how I feel like I was raised in a place that wasn't just about making money, but it was about making art. And I feel like I wish I could give that gift to everybody. And I feel like we are in a world right now where art isn't appreciated, where libraries aren't appreciated, where the parks aren't appreciated, and we have to be louder than that. I'm gonna go louder. Because I just said we've got to be louder than that. So, you know, I had a friend who once said, life rhymes, which means I had to listen to that rhyme. I'm going to start with a poem about hard times. I'm going to put my glasses on now because also, this is my 10th book. And it means I now have readers. I did not need before. Blood coming. The pulled apart world scatters its bad news like a brush fire. The ink bleeds out the day's undoing, and here we are again, alive. The tributary of this rivering dark widens into the mind's brief break. Let the flood come. The rowdy water beasts are knocking now and now. What's left of the woods is closing in. Don't run. Open your mouth big to the rising and hope to your God. Your good heart knows how to swim. And this is a poem I wrote a long time ago about a night in Glen Ellen. I wrote this when I was living in New York City, and my office was inside the NASDAQ sign. Times Square. You couldn't get much farther than my office. Homesick. In the Glen Ellen night, banned to the backyard for running in the house. I and a particular tree became fast friends in the green sequined summer. I situated myself inside it, where I watched the yellow of our kitchen window, my soundproof family. I liked the shadows cast in gobo leaf prints on my bare limbs. I imagined myself growing green sprouts and maroon bark that shot into the dirt. Today, in this terrible cement city, I will do this bidding. But I tell you, I am there, across from Sonoma Creek, still hidden in the tree, where I cannot be unbelieved. And this is a poem that I wrote when I was living in Brooklyn, and I think that a lot of the themes of my work, which is a strange exercise to do, to put together a new and selected, to go through poems that you wrote when you were 20, to poems that you wrote when you were 45, 48. And so it's a strange thing that I look back at the themes of my life, and a lot of it is trying to find the bright scene in the darkness. And I think I'm always trying to find that bright scene. The same thing. There's an awful story in the news. For days you cannot sleep. It's too hot. It's too cold. It's just a story in the news, not another human, not a whole country, not another animal, just a piece of paper. Then you feel a little better. You go to the train and wear your headphones. You listen to a sad song that sounds familiar. You pass a store window and there's someone you don't know walking where you're walking. Heels, a summer dress, hair tied up too fancy for the week. The television says, tomorrow night they will shed some light on hell. How far do we need to search for some bad thing? Hell is not beneath us, not a bargaining chip with your children. You come home on the train and you have bought gifts and tried to be decent. This is how your life will go. You know that. Day after day, awful acceptance, the soft life of your footprints. You start to think of the alternative. You shake your real shirt off in the hallway. Would it be the same if you were born in Mexico? Life, Cuba, Ireland, 1974. You miss everyone, even the people you read about, and today you didn't know their faces on the brain as if on paper. You sit on the balcony, which is really a fire escape, but you call it the balcony to make it sound better. You wear the slip your grandmother gave you 15 years ago. The weather is nice, California nice. You sing a little, call your family. You think things aren't so bad. You say you love the world. So love the world. Maybe you don't even say it for yourself. Maybe you move your mouth like everyone moves their mouth. Maybe your mouth is the same mouth as everyone's, all trying to say the same thing. How you guys doing? Can you hear me okay? This is a poem I wrote for ladies. How to triumph like a girl. I like the lady horses best. How they make it all look easy. Like running 40 miles per hour is as fun as taking a nap or grass. I like their lady horse swagger after winning. Ears up, girls, ears up. But mainly, let's be honest, I like that they're ladies. As if this big, dangerous animal is also a part of me. That somewhere inside the delicate skin of my body, there pumps an 8-pound female horse heart. Giant with power, heavy with blood. Don't you want to believe it? Don't you want to lift my shirt and see the huge, beating, genius machine that thinks, no, it knows it's going to come in first. When I first moved out of New York, I tried to move back to California, and but I had fallen in love with a beautiful human being who took me to Kentucky, and he's up there. I mean there. So I spent a lot of time trying to write poems to get to know Kentucky, which is my way of connecting to things, which is to write toward it. And so this is a poem about that first, I think it was the first couple months that we were there. During the impossible age of everyone. 1, there are so many people who've come before us. Arrows and wagon wheels, obsidian tools, buffalo. Look out at the meadow, you can almost see them, generations dissolved in the bluegrass and hay. I want to try and be terrific, even for an hour. 2, if you walk long enough, your crowded head clears, like how all the cattle run off loudly as you approach. This fence is a good fence, but I doubt my own haywire will hold up to all this blank sky, so open and explicit. I'm like a fence, or a cow, or that word, yonder. 3, there is a slow tractor traffic hollering outside, and I'd like not to be traffic, but the window shaking. Your shoes are piled up with mine, and the heat comes on, makes a simple noise, a dog yawn. People have done this before, but not us. That poem is in 3 sections, and initially they were just the 3 beverages of the day, and they were called coffee, water, wine. This is a poem I wrote about, I think everyone asks about the process of being a poet. You know, what is it like? How do you go through it and make things? And a lot of it has to do with silence and receiving the world and being quiet and listening. And this is a poem. The Quiet Machine. I'm learning so many different ways to be quiet. There's how I stand in the lawn, that's one way. There's also how I stand in the field across from the street. That's another way, because I'm farther from people and therefore more likely to be alone. There's how I don't answer the phone. and how I sometimes like to lie down on the floor of the kitchen and pretend I'm not home when people knock. There's daytime silent when I stare, and nighttime silent when I do things. There's shower silent, and bath silent, and California silent, and Kentucky silent, and car silent, and then there's the silence that comes back, a million times bigger than me. Sneaks into my bones and wails and wails and wails until I can't be quiet anymore. That's how this machine works. I wanted to read this poem from my father, Ada Limón, and I've recently moved back not just to the valley, but to the home that I was raised in. And so this poem comes up a lot. We had a beautiful garden, and I was obsessed with all the growing things, enough to occasionally rip them up. I remember the carrots. I haven't given up on trying to live a good life, a really good one even. Sitting in the kitchen in Kentucky, imagining how agreeable I'll be, the advance of fulfillment and of desire. All these needs met, then unmet again. When I was a kid, I was excited about carrots, their spidery neon tops in the garden's plot, and so I ripped them all out. I broke the new roots and carried them like a prize to my father, who scolded me, rightly, for killing his whole crop. I loved them, my own bright dead things. I'm 35 and remember all that I've done wrong. Yesterday I was nice, but in truth I resented the contentment of the field. Why must we practice the surrender? What I mean is, there are days I still want to kill the carrots. My father wrote a response poem to that. It's called Carrot Crop Lost. It's a pretty amazing poem. This is one of my best friends is here tonight, and this is a poem for another one of my best friends, Trish, and it was a time when we were both living in Brooklyn and thinking desperately about trying to live other places, and this is the poem that came from someplace like Montana. Now, when I go to the grocery store, I'm amazed at the wide aisles of bright food and foodstuffs. And it's nothing like the bodega I shopped in for years in Brooklyn between the bars we liked. Once, when I was going for groceries, I ran into tea, and we decided we needed to drink rather than shop, and so we did. There were lots of beers on tap, and the taps were all different, like toys in a dentist's toy chest. So I said, I'll have what she's having. And maybe it was snowing out, and it seemed to be at a time when every shirt I bought at the second-hand store would turn out to be see-through. But I didn't know it until I was already out. So a lot of conversations would start, is this shirt see-through? And it was. We talked for a long time, grocery bags empty on the chair, and we both talked about moving to someplace like Montana. How sometimes it would be nice to see more sky than just this little square between the bridges and buildings. But then we'd miss Brooklyn and each other, and we ordered another beer. T was writing a play, also some articles, and we both just needed some money and maybe to make out with someone who wasn't an asshole. But also we wanted to make great art. T was really good at naming things, so we decided she should be a typologist. And she liked that, so she agreed. What would we do if we lived in some place like Montana? We'd go for walks and look at trees and write and look at the sky. Yes, and we'd cook and go to those huge grocery stores that have toy cars attached to the carts so kids can pretend like they're driving. Yes, and we'd probably have kids too. All of this seemed really far off and not like us at all. So we ordered another beer and said, life is long. Now I'm walking around the grocery store in Kentucky, and I've just looked at trees and sky. and I should write about something, so I asked T to tell me what to write about. She says, saturation. And I think of that feeling when you're really full, or life is full, and you can't think of anything else that could fit in it. But then even more sky comes, more days. And there is so much to remember and swallow. I asked T what I should call the thing I write about saturation, because she's a cytologist. And she says, someplace like Montana. How are you guys doing? There's a problem when you read in one of your favorite places, is that you just want to hang out with everyone. Too sad. This was a poem I wrote in Kentucky, but it's set in Kentucky and in California. And I was trying to think of the ways in which we sometimes can't find shared language. I think so much of what we're dealing with now is the effect of our inability to find shared language or even to agree upon truth. And so, this is that. What it looks like to us and the words we use. All these great barns out here in the outskirts, black creosote boards knee-deep in the bluegrass. They look so artfully abandoned, even in use. You say they look like arks after the seas dried up. I say they look like pirate ships. And I think of that walk in my valley where Jay said, "You don't believe in God?" And I said, "No, I believe in this connection we all have to nature, to each other, to the universe." And she said, "Yeah, God."
Yeah.
And we stood there, low beasts among the white oaks, Spanish moss and spider webs, obsidian shards stuck in our pockets, woodpecker flurry, and I refused to call it so. So instead, we looked up at the unruly sky, its clouds and simple animal shapes we could name, though we knew they were really just clouds, disorderly and marvelous and ours. Too sad. I know. Just not gonna be that sad. This is a poem that I wrote that, there's a quote of it on the bookstore that's on the bench that's outside the bookstore. And I used to call it an apocalyptic love poem. But then I thought maybe poets were saying apocalypse too much. And we've conjured it. So I'm just not gonna say it. I'm just gonna call it a love poem. The conditional. Say tomorrow doesn't come. Say the moon becomes an icy pit. Say the sweet gum tree is petrified. Say the sun's a foul black tire fire. Say the owl's eyes are pinpricks. Say the raccoon's a hot tar stain. Say the shirt's plastic ditch litter. Say the kitchen's a cow's corpse. Say we never get to see it. Bright future, stuck like a bum star, never coming close, never dazzling. Say we never meet her, never him. Say we spend our last moments staring at each other, hands knotted together, clutching the dog, watching the sky burn. Say it doesn't matter. Say that would be enough. Say you'd still want this. Us, alive, right here, feeling lucky. I write a lot about trees, and an obsession of mine. And today my friend Vaughn is with us, and she is visiting from Kentucky. And with the rain, I got to talk about all the moss. And I was like, "See, there's moss." And Lucas was like, "Oh yeah, at some point she's gonna say, pretty soon this is all gonna be green." And Vaughn said, "Oh, so everything that was was brown will be green, and I said, oh, we don't call that brown. We call that gold. But this is a poem I wrote for anyone and everyone who's ever been asked, where are you from? And then followed up with a, no, where are you from? And this was my response. Ancestors, I've come here from the rocks, the bone-like chert, obsidian, lava rock. I've come here from the trees, chestnut, baylor, toyon, acacia, redwood, cedar, 1,000 oaks that bend with moss and old man's beard. I was born on a green couch on Carriger Road, between the vineyards and the horse pasture. I don't remember what I first saw, the brick of light that unhinged me from the beginning. I don't remember my brother's face, my mother, my father. But later, I remember leaves. Through car windows, through bedroom windows, through the classroom window, the way they shaded and patterned the ground, all that power from roots. Imagine you must survive without running. I've come from the lacing patterns of leaves. I do not know where else I belong. And the poem for my mother. Many of you know that she's done the cover of all of my books. And this is no exception. It's just that the painting is inside the name and it's inside so it's still there. And she's a big part of my life and who I am. And this is a poem about, thank you. The raincoat. When the doctor suggested surgery and a brace for all my youngest years, my parents scrambled to take me to massage therapy, deep tissue work, osteopathy, and soon my crooked spine unspooled a bit. I could breathe again and move more in a body unclouded by pain. My mom would tell me to sing songs to her, the whole 45-minute drive to Middle 2 Rock Road and 45 minutes back from physical therapy. She'd say that even my voice sounded unfettered by my spine afterward. So I sang and sang because I thought she liked it. I never asked her what she gave up to drive or how her day was before this chore. Today, at her age, I was driving myself home from yet another spine appointment, singing along to some maudlin but solid song on the radio. And I saw Mom take her raincoat off and give it to her young daughter when a storm took over the afternoon. My God, my whole life I've been under her raincoat, thinking it was somehow a marvel that I never got wet. That's one of the few poems that I wrote backwards. I saw the image and then had to get the beginning. It's a poem that I think of it as a sister poem. Sometimes you think of poems that have brothers and sisters. And this is the one that I do have a poem that is engraved on a spacecraft, which is a weird thing to say. And this is a poem that I wrote many years before that poem, but I think of them as sister poems. Dead stars. Out here, there's a bowing, even the trees are doing. Winter's icy hand at the back of all of us. Black bark, slick yellow leaves, a kind of stillness that feels so mute it's almost in another year. I am a hearth of spiders these days, a nest of trying. We point out the stars that make Orion as we take out the trash. The rolling containers a song of suburban thunder. It's almost romantic as we adjust the waxy blue recycling bin until you say, man, we should really learn some new constellations. true, still true, actually. We keep forgetting about Antlia, Centaurus, Draco, Lacerta, Hydra, Lyra, Link. But mostly we're forgetting her dead stars too. My mouth is full of dust, and I wish to reclaim the rising. To lean in the spotlight of streetlight with you, toward what's larger within us, toward how we were born. Look, we are not unspectacular things. We've come this far, survived this much. What would happen if we decided to love more, to love harder? What if we stood up with our synapses and flesh and said no? No to the rising tides, stood for the many mute mouths of the sea, of the land. What would happen if we used our bodies to bargain for the safety of others, for Earth, if we declared it a clean night, if we stopped being terrified, if we launched our demands into the sky, made ourselves so big people could point to us with the arrows they make in their minds, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over. I'm gonna read just 4 more. What are they gonna be? How do you guys do? It's a poem from my husband. It's a love poem. And it's for anyone who's ever been in a relationship with an artist. Is anyone here a writer? An artist? Okay. Anyone is a partner of that artist? So this poem's for you. At one point, Lucas had seen all these photographs of me out on the road reading and touring, and he was like, "You look great." And then I kind of paused and looked at myself in the house, and I thought, "Oh." So this is the poem. Love poem with apologies for my appearance. Sometimes I think you get the worst of me. The much loved loose forest green sweatpants. The long braless days, hair knotted and uncivilized, a shadowed brow where the devilish thoughts do their hoofed dance on the brain. I'd like to say this means I love you. The stained white cotton t-shirt, the tears, pistachio shells, the mess of orange peels on my desk. But it's different than that. I move in this house with you the way I move in my mind, unencumbered by beauty's cage. I do like I do in the tall grass, more animal me than much else. I'm wrong. It is that I love you, but it's more that when you say it back, lights out, a cold wind through curtains, for maybe the first time in my life, I believe it. The introvert up there is like, oh no. She's looking at me. This is a poem I want to read for mountains. Can you read a poem for mountains? The geography of mountains. In the center of the center, somehow another center. I wake in the valley with a view of a blue shed in a green field. A round picture of a hummingbird recalls a clock without hands, and so always it's hummingbird time. A swish of minutes, a revolve of wings. No one believes that people just point to the moon, but I just said, look, the moon. And we all looked. Growing up, I could see San Pablo Bay from Moon Mountain and Mount Tamalpais. They'd say Mount Tamalpais looks like a woman sleeping. The problem? All mountains look like women sleeping. Their curve, the blood, the hair, the releasing into the earth, somnolence at last. I want to be sleeping like those mountains, lazy as the laziest days of summer, too lazy to even lick the popsicle stick, just anchored in the understory. Everyone wants you to rest, but they too want you to return their notes with some urgency. They say, please take it easy, but after you take care of this for me. Once my mother pulled me out of school and I sobbed because I was going to miss so much, and then God forbid I'd be given a B, and she said that's why I needed a break from school to know it was okay to be idle. I was in 3rd grade. In college, I wrote a paper on Wittgenstein. I got his whole theory about God wrong, but managed to earn a B because even though I had missed the point, the paper was well written and contained dreams. I'm always missing the point. I want to sit for a long time and not be in pain. I said to someone recently, I'd like to have all pictures taken of me taken lying down. It seemed like a perfectly fine figure, a portrait of a woman resting. Everything around her coming to a stop, a hummingbird at the theater, not in a hurry, a slow motion to grace, a blade of a machine finally stuck in the rock of the mountain. No dynamite, all the world called off, sent home to rest, cessation. And don't worry, the dead do not look like they're napping. They look dead. You cannot wake them, not even to ask for forgiveness, or to be reminded of what they said so we don't go on getting it wrong. But I love to see my people in their bones, at ease, the siesta's long tradition healing in the heat. When I sleep, I am so busy in my dreams that I wake, and sometimes that too feels like rest. Wittgenstein said, we wake sometimes just to know we are dreaming. After all these years, I am waking up. After all these years, I've come home to the valley. And now I know well the mountain that looks like a woman sleeping. I can point at her curves. I know also that all mountains are women sleeping, dissolving imperceptibly, stretched out at last, alone, at rest, the source of everything. The naked ladies are still blooming, some of them. And Iris was just saying that her father used to say, the naked ladies are coming. And I grew up just knowing the flowers, naked ladies. I didn't know they were called lilies. I didn't know anything, just they were naked ladies. And so I wrote this poem about the moment in my life when I was asked what I wanted to be. Every blooming thing. Shout out in the sun, those pink blooms, mouth the fall air like needy beings brightening with desire. Long ago, before I knew the difference between skin sack and petal, I told my parents I wanted to be a naked lady. Those flamingo flowers standing tall along the highways and back roads, even when all the grass was gold and crisp with flame danger, those lilies, they never seemed to tire, never lost their surprise or their softness. I didn't know then it was wrong to wish to be a naked lady, wronger even to wish to be a flower. And I'll close with this poem, which is engraved on the spacecraft, the Europa Clipper. And it was launched, thank you, yes. It was launched into space on October 14th, 2024. It's in my own handwriting, engraved on the vault plate for the mission. And when I first was asked to do this assignment, they had just given me a few little things to consider, and one of them was that it couldn't be too long. You know, they couldn't have a second spacecraft. And the other thing was that they also wanted to make sure that it was able to be read by someone with a 4th grade reading level. And I am very embarrassed to admit that my first thought in this meeting was, oh, they think aliens can only read to a 4th grade. Very quickly I realized they weren't talking about that. And NASA doesn't like it when you talk about aliens. I mean, this is on YouTube. But they also don't like it when you touch things. So I always wanted to touch things in the clean room, but they wasn't allowed to do. But I'll just say that it was one of the most difficult assignments of my life was to write this poem. And I realized that as someone who believes deeply, earnestly, and with all my whole heart that this is the best planet, this one, that even though I was writing a poem for out there, this is a poem for right here. And also, I'll just say that many federal agencies have been asked to scrub lots of things off of their websites. And I'm really glad that they can't scrub it off of the spacecraft. In praise of mystery. Arching under the night sky, inky with black expansiveness, we point to the planets we know. We pin quick wishes on stars. From Earth, we read the sky as if it is an unerring book of the universe, expert and evident. Still, there are mysteries below our sky. The whale song, the songbird singing its call in the bough of a wind-shaken tree. We are creatures of constant awe, curious at beauty, at leaf and blossom, at grief and pleasure, sun and shadow. And it is not darkness that unites us, not the cold distance of space, but the offering of water. Each drop of rain, each rivulet, each pulse, each vein. Oh, second moon, we too are made of water, of vast and beckoning seas. We too are made of wonders, of great and ordinary loves, of small, invisible worlds, of a need to call out through the dark.
This mic all set up. If anyone wants to ask a question, if you want to just come on up. I know it's a little bit weighted towards people who are sitting in the ends of rows, but we can do our best and come on up here.
Or you can shout, perhaps, if you feel like that's the important.
Thank you so much for being here. It's such a pleasure to hear your poems and your voice. I've heard you talk about when NASA and you were asked to write that poem and how it was. Wow. Oh my.
Yeah.
What was it like for you when you were asked to be the U.S. Poet Laureate?
Yeah. It was much the same, that immediate yes with enthusiasm, thinking about the legacy. I immediately thought of Gwendolyn Brooks, Natasha Trethewey, Billy Collins, Robert Pinsky. It was hard not to think about all the poets that I loved and admired that served in that role. And then immediately I was also very freaked out. And Val is here, she's my representative and speaking agent and collaborator, and she said to me, you know, you have to take this Zoom call and you might want to do your hair. I can't tell you what it is. And so I prepared, I had no idea what it was, and then I got asked, and she said, right after you have this call, come and meet me for breakfast. And so we went to our breakfast spot, she was there with a big bouquet of flowers, and she said, "We can still say no." But we didn't. And there's no way I could have done the laureateship without one. And I think that it was realizing that everything was a collaborative effort and that I wasn't in it alone. I was in it with everyone who had served in that role before and everyone who would serve after. But it was, I am, even though I'm a public artist, I am an artist. And I think there's a part of me that felt like you become a little more of a symbol. If you've ever, studied tarot, it's like you become a major arcana card. It's like you become a symbol of the thing you're trying to just make. And so that was the difficult thing. But I believe so deeply in libraries that to serve the largest library in the world was a resounding yes. And I'm really, really glad I did it for 3 years.
Hello, Ada.
Hello.
Hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
So I'm a writer as well, mostly self-published in zines. I have a question because I know as writers, we want to find the right word. We want to be specific. And it's been really hard for me to write right now about international things and national things. I don't know that we have the language. And Andy talked earlier in introducing you that language and poetry is about connection.
Yeah.
And I really struggle because I want to bring that connection and to not have the language, like to feel like genocide is actually not the right term for what's going on. What are words? Like, I think we need to create a word for what's happening internationally and nationally. And maybe it's the same word. So what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I love a question that is just, what are words? Because as you know, I feel like that all the time. I think anytime you sit down to write anything, you think, what is a poem? What is language? What is any of this? What is a body? What is a mind? How am I connected? Like, is this soul that's inside of me connected to every other soul? Are we experiencing a collective grief? When a tree goes down, do I actually feel it in my body? Right? All of those things. I think that kind of questioning is just the beginning. And I don't know if we have language yet. But I think that language is coming. And the reason I think it's coming is because I think we're starting to grieve.
Yeah.
And I don't think we were doing that before.
No.
And I think the grief has to come first before the language and the new beginnings can come out. So right now, I think that what we are experiencing is just really collective sorrow. And I think out of that will hopefully birth strength.
Thank you.
An honor to ask you a question today. My name is Nico, and I'm an educator. I teach recently arrived immigrants. And I think something that I see is that we overload with grammar and not enough metaphors. And so I'm trying to kind of figure out like which poems to possibly integrate and teach them. So would you like to maybe recommend one or two to maybe start with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, thank you for the work you do, by the way, thank you. I feel like one of the things that I love about metaphor is that we all do it naturally, and we do it in every language, but there is that need to describe how I am feeling to someone else. We say things like, I've got butterflies in my stomach. We say things, there's the ways that we're trying to convey something is almost always metaphorical. So for me, I would start with How to Train Like a Girl and Downhearted in particular, which is in this book, because it keeps turning and opening what a metaphor is and the idea of downhearted, and start to see the heart actually on the bottom like it's sunk down. And so I think that you can explore the idea of metaphor in the many different ways we're trying to convey to someone what a feeling actually is. Thank you for the work you do.
teacher for a long time too, and I just want to say that students love your poems, and it's so exciting to do that. You alluded to it before, like, kind of your greatest hits collection, and I kind of wonder what that process was like.
Yeah.
I was worried my favorite would make the cut,
Ooh.
it did,
Yay.
so great.
My work here is done.
How did you winnow down to the heart of what you wanted to
Yeah.
present?
Yeah, thank you, it was really difficult. It was really hard, and I think a lot of it was that I had to, there were poems that I knew that were people's favorites, that I knew I wanted to put in the book. But then there were also poems that I knew that were personal favorites that I wanted to put in the book. And then a lot of poems that were favorites of mine that really belonged in a larger collection that they belonged in. Like they belong in those first collections. And so I had to let them go and know that they are already there, you know, and in some ways it was a little easier than putting together a collection where you know you may not publish that poem at all. These were like, they already exist, they are out there, right? So if you have that favorite poem, you might go and look at that whole collection. So this was about how could I create an arc of a life and a real sense of time with some of those initial questions and those always questions, and make sure that I was still staying true to those always questions that I, you know, that circulate within me. And so I wanted to make a book that felt different, and it felt like it had a different kind of energy, yet at the same time honored all of those original instincts that I've always had, which is the curiosity of why we are alive, why we are here. You know, what is it that that makes this life so difficult and yet so wondrous at the very same time? And I think that's the through line, which is why I titled it Startlement, because it's about wonder. It's about wonderment. It's about amazement. And I think that when I can't have hope, I can be amazed. I can be curious. I can be, oh, this is amazing. And I also thought of the idea that a collection of poems, when you think about the collective nouns for birds, right, like a murder of crows, and I thought it could be a startlement of poems. Travel together. But thank you. It was really difficult to do, and it was a check-in. I'm not yet 50, but it felt like a check-in on all the things that you've created this month.
No pressure, but we have time for one more question. Does anyone want to do the last?
First of all, thank you for what you said about libraries as a retired librarian. Would you have some advice for a last poet or someone who wanted to start poetry?
Yeah, I think that one of my favorite things, and I talk about this often, is that there are a lot of secret poets, and I've now traveled so many different places. I've been to almost every state in the union, aside from North Dakota, South Dakota, and Alaska. I'm going to get there. But it feels to me like those secret poems are just as important as the public poem, as the poem that is meant for publication, as the poem that is meant to hand to a friend. So I think I would start with really trying to write something that's important to you and to figure out who it's for. Because sometimes a really brilliant use of a poem is to write a thank you to somebody and just give it to them, you know, and to actually write it to them. And there's so many people in our lives that we take for granted. And starting with a thank you is a really powerful way of not just connecting to the art of making something, but to why it matters. Thank you so much.